Hey everybody. So in this video what we're going to do is go through 20 to about 25 names today that actually moved. There's a lot to go over today. So we might go through a couple more names than we usually do. But let's just jump right into it here. So first and foremost, let's just start in alphabetical order, which is what we usually do. It just makes it so much easier to follow along and then go back and look at these later. For those that are new, what we do is just simply go through the daily events and then take a look and see what's going on out there and figure out where we might find something to capitalize on. I go through about 200 to 300 stocks before I even come up with this list, and I try to whittle it down to 20. Tonight was a little hard to whittle it to 20 because there's a lot. There's a lot going on out there, so we're going to get into it. This is Advanced Auto Parts, and this is kind of interesting because they're all kind of looking like this. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so see this little H? See how you came right to the top of that H? Okay, so right. See how this reversed today? Broke down, right? This is one of the reasons I always say this is from the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, there's a free version that comes out every Wednesdays, so that you can actually see the ideas, follow along. It's a great way to understand what we actually do. So, but look at like AN, right? What happened today, right? Just enough to undercut to get everybody out to run. It's one of the reasons why I say to people, you know, sometimes if you can, on a certain size of the position, if you can't do it on all of it, consider doing it on some, where you wait and see what the close is. Right? I mean, this is a completely different story now on this name, right? And you're seeing that, and it's very interesting when this happens. Like, why is that happening in this space? Now, CVNA is hanging in there as well, right? So you're seeing a turn. But what makes this so important is because I've been talking about these patterns, and you're seeing more and more of them right now. That's why I'm talking about them. So you're seeing these failed H patterns. And essentially what a failed H pattern is this, and I would strongly recommend you start looking for them because they're powerful bounces. So here's your H, right? It's a lowercase h. It's nothing crazy, just simple H, okay? And all you're doing is looking for them, and here's one. But notice when you get to the bottom of the H, if you don't break, you will reverse
market
pretty
data
strong.
Connection lost.
And that's what happened here. Let me turn off the interactive broker. There we go. Okay. So what you're going to see here is with this is you're going to see these patterns break out and go a lot higher. And this will go to probably head to 225 now, fairly easy, right? And when do we have earnings? We have earnings coming out on the 24th. So you have a whole week before earnings. So that's good as well. But I think the space has just shown you which way it's going to go. And I think the whole space needs to be looked at again. So definitely look at them. I don't know if this is the one coming into earnings versus, you know, AN that we already had earnings and you saw how it did. I mean, it kind of seems to me that might be, you know, the smarter play to buy something that already has come out with earnings so that you're not taking the earnings risk here. But they're probably all going to trade in tandem with however that does. So AMC, I got a lot of questions on today, which really bodes very well for those that are trading it because you're just seeing a ton of action. Now, let me just do it this way and let me open it up. So I actually took a position on this and then just closed it because I didn't like the way it was acting. There we go. Perfect. So see this 3410? We had to get through that. And we didn't get through that on Friday, right? We got through it today, didn't we? So I understand that people are like, well, we didn't go all the way through. No, but you're working your way up this red bar. So in a sense, that trade should still, if you're in this, I understand why you're in this, and all you're looking for is that 37.16. And today's daily bar should not discourage you at all. I mean, if anything, you've tested, right, the bottom, and now all you're looking to do is see if you can get above here. Now, it's not really a double bottom because you didn't break here, but you did from this one. So, right, depends on how you look at it. But from here, I'd like to see if you could break this and then push higher. I like the idea. I mean, I like the trade here. Put this over here. And let's click on the indicators again. You stopped right at the 21-day, but look at your 8. Your 8's curling up, so now you're wedged in here, so the next thing to do is to flip the yellow and get through 37. I think you can get through that 37, and I think you can get up here to this 44 or 45 level. I think fairly easy. AMD. So with AMD, I thought this one was pretty interesting too. That's why I wanted to cover it. So here's your high, here's your low. So you basically have a bearish engulfing bar right at the top of this, right? Now, to me, I'd like to see the bodies of the bars encompass one another, and you really don't have that. You have it on the bottom, which is not great, but you're kind of missing it by a little bit on the top. But if you were just going to look for a true engulfing bar, and you were just looking at, let's just say, I don't know, let's just say you were looking at bar chart. That's an engulfing bar, right? It is, if you were just looking that way with it. And if you were looking at it with candlesticks, and you were just looking at it and saying, the two bars, and I don't care about the bodies, it's a bearish engulfing bar. So it's not great. It basically means that we couldn't hold the 1171, right? We all can see we can all see that right here, right? We couldn't hold that 1171. And we can see how we rejected the 8-day again. So not only are we not closing above it now the open can't even hold it. That's not a ringing endorsement. That's actually building an H, like we just talked about, right? And that could come down here to the 104. So this would not be the name that I would be looking to be in right now. I would watch this and let this play out. To me, it looks like it's got more basing to do after today. So, it never fails, and I can't tell you how many times I've said this. Okay, and here we are again today. Stop 32.90. My stops that I use at the close. Okay, some people, I understand, you don't want to take that risk because you were down another 3% today at some point, and I understand that, and you have to do what your process is. I'm simply just giving you one way to possibly look at this with maybe a percentage of your trade, or maybe you don't look at it at all, but just something to think about. As you start looking at this and start looking at where your stops are and start thinking, hey, what would have happened if I used the close of the day on a percentage of it? Would I have been better off or worse off? Okay, so there's a lot going on with algorithms and high-frequency traders that know how to manipulate stop levels. They can't manipulate the entire day, but they can certainly manipulate a level. So consider that when you're setting your stops. Anyway, Amazon, what you're going to see here, the game's always changing. Just
Market
remember
data
that.
connection lost.
The players stay the same, the human emotion parts of it stay the same, but the game always changes.
Market data connection reestablished.
See how you're coming down and you're riding that? And now you have this here, like you have a hammer bar. This flips that hammer tomorrow, I would be long again. I am long, but if I was not long this, if I got stopped out, if I flip this tomorrow, I would be long again. Actually, if I flip this tomorrow, I might even be looking at an options trade again. Actually, I will be looking at an options trade tomorrow if that flips that level. So this can go. I already have a couple lined up in my head. But if it flips that level, I'm going to push. There's no way I'm going to flip that hammer of that magnitude and not get through that 8-day. That's my belief, right? That's what I'm putting out there. That's my expectation. So we know how expectations go. But nonetheless, that's what I'm looking for to happen, and I think it could. I like that trade a lot. I really do. So this is a new one that I was asked to cover. I think that this was an IPO, and I've been busy, really busy. So I have been a little behind on all the IPOs. I was watching Robinhood on and off, but so there's your key level, right? And as we always talk about when these things IPO, look at what happened. Okay, there's your trading range. Everything else doesn't matter. It's always the first bar. Look what happened when you broke the first bar. That was the end of it. Okay, this we talk about things staying the same and things changing. This always stays the same. So this is interesting that you have a bullish engulfing down here at the very bottom, right? Did you have any volume today? Yeah, you had a little volume. So, you may want to watch that and see how it plays out. To me, I wouldn't go near this until I got over 1650. BITF, this is Bitfarms. This is not one that I play with. Let's take a look. Let's see what we have going on here. So, right off the rip, you can all see this, right? You really don't even need me for that. You can see how the 733 has been rejected over and over again, right? So you know that you can just draw levels to determine where resistance points right at the tops of these things. and they give you an understanding, and it's kind of interesting to see how it goes. So like this day you thought you were okay, the next day you're not, fails again, fails the second time, especially on these little guys, you just get out of the way. So the indicators in. So you're seeing a lot more activity. And here's what I would argue. Obviously, bit farms, obviously they have something to do with crypto. So here's what I would call a negative divergence. And I'll just point it out what it is so that you're aware of it. And it started happening. So we're basically building a bull flag above the 200-day on Bitcoin, right? You have these levels, but nonetheless, this is a breakout bar. If we got rid of all this nonsense for a moment, right? Here's your flagpole. Okay, drop this here, and you can see the lower end of the flag, right? And then you can see the top end of the flag. Okay, so you're still forming a or a bull flag, and where you're doing that above the 200-day. All right, so you're not really dropping. What's this doing, right? Here's your flagpole, right? What's this doing? Can't stay above the bottom part of that. So what that becomes is it becomes a negative divergence. And that means that it's not even acting on good news on Bitcoin when it's building and basing. In other words, if I break this to get this out there, if I break this 8-day, you're going a lot lower. If I break this 8-day, in my opinion, you could be going to the fours pretty quickly. And what else makes me think that? See this bar? That's about as bearish as a bar as you can get. When you have a solid bar, red or green, like totally solid, what does that mean? It means that the high was the open and the low was the close. And if that was green, it would mean vice versa, right? And that would mean that you had buying all day. This means you had selling all day. And that's not really that hard to see, right? Look at all these wicks. And as we know, wicks are price rejection. And I will link that video, and I'm actually going to put it in the comments as well and pin it. The candlestick video. I can't recommend more to anyone that please watch this. There's 5 patterns. You can identify them all day long and stay out of harm's way. They actually do work. And they are something that could add incremental value to your investment strategy. So BLOK, let's see what's going on here. And I had so many that just were doing something, and I wanted to cover them all because I know people are like a little skittish today when you sell down, and you have some geopolitical events going on right now. It's going to happen. So look, you broke right below that 8-day. There's no reason to go near this, none. You have like one thing that you have going for it, right? And you're literally sitting, like, if you want to just see it, if you can't see from the line, just look. Okay, bonk, bonk, right? Resistance, right? It flips, okay? This was a resistance point where you overgapped it, comes back, becomes support. This level becomes support. 1, 2, 3 support, 4, 5, 6 support times. Flips it, becomes what? Resistance, can't get over it, bonk, can't get over it, bonk, 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 right? Bonk. And now what? Becomes support. So you need to hold this, because if you don't hold it, that doesn't work out too well for it. So just keep that in mind. BNTX. So this is one we actually day traded in the community and did fairly well with. At one point we were up, I think, over 20 points on the trade. I'm just going to walk through the trade and let's go through this. So to me, there's a lot to understand here, but there's a couple defining moments for something like this, and I'm going to overlay some of it so that you can see. And I might go a little over tonight, and that's okay. You can always fast forward me or put me on double speed. So see how you're breaking down here? Okay, so let's get rid of these indicators for a second. So let's just go through this. So people know I have a saying, and that saying is what, right? First mouse gets what? The trap. Second mouse gets what? The cheese, right? Everybody would rather have cheese than have their finger in a mouse trap. Okay, so stock breaks down, goes up. Okay, that's it. It's going to go. It's really going to go. I'm going to pick it off. I'm going to buy it right here. Look at all this buying. Let's overlay the indicator with that particular section. Look at all that volume coming in. Okay. What happens? Reverses, breaks down. First mouse got what? The trap. Boom, breaks all the way down again. Comes to here. Okay. Breaks out lower low. What does this do? This encapsulates this other bar. Is this bar better than that bar? Absolutely. Why? Look how it's at the low of the day and the high of the day, okay? Breaks out, okay? All we needed to do was see that, and that's when we put the trade on, okay? That was it. That was the trade. And then from there, let me just show you this so that we're all on the same page. You can understand some of the underlying things that I look at. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can understand them. So there's your RSI, okay? Here's your RSI. So I have a positive divergence on my RSI at the bottom of the trade, right? So my RSI is going up as the stock's plummeting. Okay, so as we know, RSI is one of the only leading indicators that you can use. It's not a lagging indicator like MACD. Okay, RSI is a leading indicator, significant difference. Okay, so looking at this, what does that mean? It means that it gave us a great opportunity to get in. We took advantage of it. And then all I did, so that you're aware of this, I just kept walking the stop up. So when we were up $10 in the trade, right, which happened when? Right here, right? Then we moved the stop up. Okay, sell a portion, move the stop up, hold all of it, move the stop up. It's up to you how you trade. Okay, and then you can see this. All right, so now you have this trend. Now you have this trend line. So now I have cleared over here. Okay, and now I have stated that this is our breakout bar. So if I got below this, right, my worst case was break even on that bar, and then we got to here. And then we just kept going. And what happens up here? This bar encapsulates the other one. When we were up here, we talked about, hey, you probably are going to want to trim some. Let me show you why we said that. Okay. And we'll get rid of all these indicators. All right. This is not rocket science. Okay. I talk about these long red nasty bars all the time, right? So here you are. Okay. That's why I said when we were up, I think we were up 20 points at that point. Right? Just trim some right into it. That's why I said that. Okay, this was my singular focus reason for saying that, because I got to the point of this and then I reversed that point, right? 347.50, but you're not going to see that on a 15-minute. So then you go to like a 1 minute, okay? And you see that reversal on that 15-minute right here? That's it. Boom. Okay? Trim. Move the stop. Where was the last place I said sell? Was right here, and that was it, and the trade was done. Now, you could have stayed in the trade. The trade might work long term. For me, it was a day trade. And usually when I do trades like this that are day trades, just to go over this one in particular, okay, when I'm in a tape like this and I have a nasty, that's nasty, no matter how cool and how much I love BNTX and how great we did with it, right? Like we crushed it on this stock. Right? I mean, we bought part at 219. We bought it again 253. Got out right in the up here somewhere. I don't remember exact, but who cares? You know, we crushed it. But this chart, that's an H. We broke the H and we're down. So this is a trade. Okay, even maybe I pick the bottom, maybe I don't. But I'd rather come in tomorrow and have that profit locked in and try to figure it out. That doesn't mean that if you have a large position, you can't, like just devil's advocate, let's say you have 1,000 shares of it, right? That doesn't mean you can't hold a portion now and just say, oh, I'm going to wait and see if it takes out that low. Maybe it never sees that low again. But to me, there's always another entry. And that's how I looked at it. But that's how I came up with that day trade today for the community. Just FYI for those that kept asking about it. So let's do CROX. Let's get rid of this. So this is only going to take a second. I don't really need indicators. I just keep grinding higher. There's nothing to do here. Apparently, CROX are all the rage. It just keeps grinding, and it's going to keep grinding. The majority of the move that this stock has happens on earnings. I don't want to heat map events, right? Earnings, moves. So the majority of that move is earnings and then the expectation of earnings, right? Earnings and then the expectation of earnings. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm not going to chase this here. It could keep going, but it's not something that I would chase. I mean, it does look great, and if you're in the trade, I mean, obviously stay in it, congratulations. But it's just not something that is glaring to me, right? It just seems to me like, you know, when you start running like this, and you have all these wicks, it could just turn on you at any time. So I'd rather just avoid it and wait for it to sell down and you get an opportunity. You always get another opportunity. You think you're not going to, but they're always there, right? So look at UPST, which we'll get to today. So this is DOCS, DOCS, and what you're seeing with this coming right across here, look. Okay, there's your level, 80 bucks. You have not been able to cross over it. Until you get over 80 and close over 80, or, I mean, if you get over this wick, 81.16, you're probably going to close over 80. If you don't, that should be your stop. But breaking out like this and then forming this wedge, this is a very powerful pattern. Okay, you have a very small asymmetrical wedge. Actually, it's symmetrical. You have a very small symmetrical wedge. Right, here's your 80. Flip that, you'll flip the wedge. You're at least going to go to here, so that gets you 3 points to move your stop up, and then see how it can go. Duke Energy. Duke was one of two. So as people are aware, I have this in the newsletter. For those that aren't aware, this is in the newsletter. So I have this in the newsletter. And the reason that I bought this one versus the other, and we've done better with this one than Duke has, they're both a very high percentage of this, of the XLU, okay? They're very high percentage, but there's a big difference between the two, okay? The majority of difference was this was coming out of a base right when we bought it, right? We got above this wick, that was it, and then we just saw it start to move and go. What you had with Duke and one of the reasons why I didn't pick Duke for the portfolio, see these wicks? Okay, you had to work all through those wicks, and that's exactly what happened. Now, if you would prefer to be in this name, and there's legitimate reasons to be in either name, right? Depending upon what type of exposure you want, you need to get above that and you need to stay above it. You really need to close above 108. If you're in this and you don't close above 108, you probably just want to get out of the trade. But you need to close above that. If you buy it on one of those breakouts, you need to close above that. So GDLC was one I looked at actually putting in the newsletter, and then it just ran away from me. And by the time I would have put it together and had it out there, it was gone. You could just see how it just kept going, and like look at the gaps and look at the volume that's coming in today. So there'll be another opportunity here for this. It's just going to be a little higher. And by today's bar, that might not be the worst thing. So again, let me just make sure that I have the symbol up here for people that are on their mobile. And I'll keep trying to remember that people can't see the symbol up here on the top left on their mobile. I can always change the background and have a watermark, but I don't think we want a white background. I think it's too hard on the eyes, or something lighter. But I think the black's best. So if someone has a different comment about what color the background should be, let me know. I know we were doing blue for a while, but that didn't even really show the watermark. So anyway, I think it's not the worst thing here that we're taking a break, right? Is it? Look, here and here. You're just kind of sitting, hanging out. So I have these wicks, so it didn't really make a decision today. This kind of leads me to believe that this might base a little bit before going higher, this bar. And you're in one of these nasty red long bars, right? So what does that mean? We have to work that off. So IIPR, I'm not really sure what's going on. Let's just see here. Looks like after hours, it looks like we have a little movement, or is that just an odd print? Yeah, it just looks like an odd print. Yeah, so for some reason I have a print up here. I'm not really sure why. It's throwing off the chart. So this is really simple. There's nothing to do here. We've been in this one since 212. The stop's at 222. Leave it alone. You can move the stop up if you want to a close below the 8-day. I just wouldn't do that because I'm not doing it because it would have got me stopped out before. It does break the 8-day. Which one doesn't it break? The 21. Right? It doesn't break the 21 and close below the 21. Okay, so you can see what my stop is, and you see what I'm going to be using as a stop. And what's really nice about this, if you take a step back and just get rid of this part of the chart in your head for a moment, look at how these moving averages are just expanding. What does that mean? It means that this is going higher, right? This should be going higher. Our target on this is $300. I don't see any reason why that can't happen. So this is pretty interesting stuff. MasterCard. So they sold down a lot. I mean, maybe there was the hope of the interest rates. I'm not really sure. I don't know how MasterCard and Visa would really benefit from higher interest rates. They already can charge whatever the heck they want. Very different than banks, right? So what you're seeing here on this, all they really care about is volume, right? The more volume, the more they do, the better they do. But look at that. Okay? So what we're looking for this to do is kind of break out here and try to push. Could this happen? Yes. Is this an H? Absolutely. So see what happens with it, but I like it. I like Visa too. We're going to cover that next. MRNA, we're going to cover. Oops, let me just drop this here because I'm going to zoom in back here. So, right, here's your bear flag right here. Your bear flag broke today, opened here, came all the way down, right, and then bounced, and now you have a hammer. So the first thing is going to be to try to get through this 386. In order to do that, you have to get over today's open. I don't think that's going to be the easiest thing in the world, but we're going to see what's going to happen with it. And I will just kind of show you why I think that's an issue. See how here, this was a support level, right? People here, right? And that's where you opened. Something to be aware of. So I think BNTX looks a lot better. I also think the fact that if you look at how Visor's acting, it's telling you something. So NAII, I'm not really sure what happened with this one, but I wanted to cover it just because of that nasty bar. So I'm not sure if this was earnings. We'll see in a moment. I'll click on it and we'll just check. So this wasn't earnings. Maybe they did a secondary or something. Selling down more after hours. So let's just see here. So we can find out what's going on. So no, just a nasty, nasty day where we just decided to sell down all day. There's not really much to say. You know, it's obviously a very thin stock. What I would say to you is if you were in this and you're not out yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. You have to just wait for this and then just go. Because if you break that with this kind of push down, right, that's going to snap. You're going to snap your 50, easy. So I would not be in that. NOVT. So, again, this will be a really quick one. This is really simple to do. Broke out, forming a little wedge right here, right at the top. See how that 8, 21, and 50 are all spreading out? That's exactly what you want to say. That's drawn. I can do a lot better than that. There we go. So you can kind of see that little wedge right there. I like how the 8's rushing up to it and how these are expanding and widening. Just get above this. Just if you were trying to play this, get above 149, and it probably goes again. I'd like to see more volume, but I wanted to cover it because this looks to me like it's going to break out. Like it treated the 8-day like a hot potato. So RBLX, Roblox. I know these kids love this. Absolutely love it. So many parents tell me that the kids keep asking for credit cards. I mean, that's got to be a good thing, right? So they had earnings tonight, and this is what you're dealing with. So I just want to go over this lesson again that I've gone over a couple times. It's a very simple lesson. If you want to play after hours, after the first 15 minutes, you get a range. Okay, if you are not breaking above this range or below this range, you really are in no man's land, and there's really no reason to play it. You're not going to have enough juice for it to do anything, and that's exactly what's happening here. Now, what you are seeing is you're seeing very specific angled selling. And what does very specific angled selling lead to? Right? Who sells on an angle? Institutions sell on an angle. Right? They just sell a little bit and they keep walking it down. And usually that gives you this 45-degree look. And it's usually an institution. So somebody's getting out of this tonight. So this is where you're at. This is why you don't buy earnings. Even if they're good, you don't buy earnings. So I'm not overly surprised by this, at all, frankly. I mean, the thing about this is going to bother me not being capitalized. The thing about companies like this is we've already seen it happening. Any company where kids were staying in, like Roku or anything like that was online, the comps versus last year, they're not going to be the same. We don't have a global lockdown right now, so they're just not going to be the same. So just consider that. I mean, do not be rushing into this. Let this play itself out. You're slicing right through 77, 78. I know people are excited to buy it. They want to get in. Just sit, watch, and wait. So REMX. So see where this is going? You went right to that level. Rare earth strategic metals, REMX. So you really haven't gapped down like this. Now, usually when you get to the 50 is where you should be looking. So I would argue that I wouldn't be rushing into this right now. Okay, this is a pretty nasty reversal. See what happens. I don't honestly know if this had a problem because of what's happening in Afghanistan with natural minerals. I don't know if that's the issue behind this. That strategically that we might have an issue there now. I don't have an answer to that. Someone asked me that, but you'd have to go through what's in the ETF and kind of go from there. But to me, it's not something I would play with. I definitely don't like the look of it. I don't like the look that I followed the 8 the whole way up, and now I'm breaking it. Snap, this is why we have stops. Okay, right? Broke out, looked like it was going to reject. Rule of thumb for people that are new, beginners, give you a really quick trick. I don't know why I said trip, but see where you're at right here? You see how I tried to break out and failed? You break under that bar ever, right? Ever, it's time to go. And that was it. That's all it took. Okay, and now you're in no man's land. And now you're at the low end of this huge flag, which means that I could probably come down to 67, 68. TPX, temper ceiling, I wanted to cover this. This was one that was like in our top 10 list that we did. And I did update a new top 10 list, and I'll actually, I'll link that in here somewhere. Maybe I'll link it in the description, or I'll link it in the, I'll link it somewhere. Maybe I'll put it at the end with the candlestick video somehow. I'll figure out how to do that. So I don't know why I'm calling this that. Okay. Bear with me. There we go. All right, back on track. TPX. So huge breakout, right? Runs. Tries to get above, can't. Tries to get above again, can't. And now we just have to see how it plays out. Okay, $44. You need to break the $44, and you have to close above $44. And then you're going to have to get above this wick. This can go again. This could have another huge day like this. That's how this trades, if you look at it, right? You just have these huge days. So that it's out there. Tesla, I wanted to talk about. It was very interesting. I didn't get a lot of questions about it, so that usually means that people are getting slammed in it. This is pretty simple stuff. Okay, if you are preaching your autopilot and then you get out there and you start having issues with it, and now you have a Department of Transportation investigation, they don't end well. Like that, they're not going to come, they're not going to not find something, right? That's their job. So they're going to investigate this. It's going to take time. It's going to be an overhang. How much of an overhang? I don't know, but it's there now, and they're going to have to deal with it, and they're going to have to comply. I'm not saying that they wouldn't comply, but they're going to have to. And this just slows down everything. So I'm not surprised by the sell-off. Frankly, I was surprised that that was all it sold off the open. I mean, that was kind of crazy from an opening day, considering where this went to. So 697.62 was our support. It is now flipped to resistance. We have to get back above 697.62 before you even consider buying it. You are holding that 21-day, and you do have support here. So I don't know how bad this is going to get. I don't think it's going to get really bad because you have a lot of support in this level, like a ton. So, and these averages are very close together. So it should hold, but just be aware that that's a real issue that's out there. UPST. So here, we're in this, and they came out again, and what did they do? Right? What did they do? They came out and issued another secondary, but they did it in convertible bonds. And just to explain the difference of that for a little bit, it's kind of why it's trading up. Everybody said, oh God, secondary. And then they sold again. You can kind of see how it's starting to trade up here a little bit, right? Like almost if you got above this level, you could almost go long it, right? Like if you almost got above here, you could, at 195, you almost have a long, right? You could argue that maybe you should be looking at it that way. and maybe it trades back to flat. Now, the reason for this is what you're doing here and what you're looking at having happen is you're going to issue a bond. That bond is going to have the ability to, one, it's going to pay you a yield. Two, it's going to be convertible into stock. Once it's convertible into stock, what people will do that get the bond, and this is usually why after it prices, it's a day or two after it prices that you might see it sell down, is because they short stock against the bond. So in other words, they will lock in the yield and they will lock in the price, and then they just lever the trade up like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 or whatever crazy leverage they're allowed to use. And they'll make like their 5-6%, but they lever it at 3-to-1, 4-to-1, so they just make a ton of money doing it. So something to consider, but that's why it's not selling down as much. If this was a regular secondary, this would have kept selling down. So over 195, it does have the possibility to possibly move up here again. We'll see. But I don't view this as, if you're up in this, there's nothing to do. If you're down in it, in my opinion, you're better off just blowing out of it and letting this settle down and finding another position, because you're going to just have too much negative energy around it now, right? Now you have this red bar at the top, right at the 192 level. I don't know how that moved. Put that over here. So just consider that. V, I'm going to show this one as well. You have a line here. So here's your H, and then you go from there. Okay? Break here, and then you're just going to keep on going. I think it looks great. I think this is setting up for a move. Okay, it doesn't look like it by the moving averages, but see today's action? Opens, comes all the way down, reverses, decent volume. So I like this. You just have to let this play itself out a little bit and work its way up, start working there, but I do like that trade. Wide open west, wow. So this will be a pretty easy cover. I mean, really what we want to just review is one thing, right? And you can kind of see that on the chart right here. You need to hold this 50-day. If you hold the 50-day, you're fine, and you could build and base and possibly go higher. Hold a trend line in here somehow, but until you do that, you have to figure it out. And your volume's falling down, but that's just it. You need to hold that level. YETI. So in regards to YETI, broke out, tried to keep going, failed, came back to the 8, formed a hammer today, right? 99 to 102, closed at the high. Flip that hammer and watch the action happen in this, right? And it has a habit of doing that, doesn't it? Ripping down, and then going. You might be doing that here. I'd watch for a higher high tomorrow on this, and that might actually be actionable. So ZIM I love here, but you're coming out with earnings, and you have earnings on the 18th. So I would not be in a big hurry to be jumping into this here for earnings. Hold on 1 second. Let me just throw this up there. Put the cap lock on, and then I forgot that it's on all the time now. So when I click on it, there we go. Okay. So I like it. I'm not buying it before earnings. If it was a week out, I would have bought it. Absolutely. But I like how you broke. I like how you're above the 43.08, but I'm just not jumping ahead of this into earnings. So that's it. As always, I will link that candlestick video in here and also pin it in the comments. And you might want to spend a couple minutes also watching the top 10 video that I'll link at the end of this as well. As always, subscribe to the channel and click notifications because we do a lot of live shows. That's it, everyone. Have a great night.